Welcome to Cooking with Qunoot. Today I'm going to share a black-eyed pea recipe. So for this recipe we're going to need 2 cans of black-eyed peas, 1 medium onion, 1 medium jalapeno, 1.5 lemons. We're going to use a can of tomato paste, our cooking spray, as well as black pepper, salt, chili powder, and garlic powder. So we're going to get this recipe started by heating up our pan. I'm going to put this to about medium to high heat. While this is heating up, I'm going to cut my jalapeno. So to get this started, we're going to chop off the stem. We don't want that portion at all. We're going to cut this pepper lengthwise. Now, as you can see, the seeds are in here as well as the stem. We want to take both of those out to ensure that our dish isn't overly spicy. Okay, take that right out, and be sure not to touch your eyes or anywhere near your face when you're dealing with peppers. If you get a few of the seeds in the recipe, it's okay. It's just going to be a tad bit spicier than you expected. Okay, now that we have that in here. Alright, so we're going to cut our pepper lengthwise. So I want you to see that it's rounded, so it makes it a little bit difficult to cut. So what I always do is I flatten it out. I just mash it up a bit and flatten it out. So it makes it a little bit easier to cut, okay? So we're going to cut these lengthwise. Go ahead and cut the other portion lengthwise. And then we're going to dice these right up. Alright, once we have these diced up, we're going to set these aside with the onions. I'm going to add in the cooking spray to the pan. You never want to add oil to a warm or a cold pan. So I'm going to add it into the pan. Be careful with this. Tone it down just a little bit because it can be flammable. So I'm going to make sure that the entire pan is coated. You want to make sure that the entire pan has sufficient amount of oil, okay? Turn it right back up. While this is heating up, I'm going to explain these black-eyed peas to you guys. So these black-eyed peas are 15.5 ounces for each can. This is a Goya brand. This is a Goya brand. You can really use any brand. It just happens to be one of my favorites, and it's usually around. So to ensure that our oil has heated up, I always have a quick test. I put a little bit of water on my hands and I spray, and that's the sound you're looking for. So you know your pan's ready. Now I'm going to go ahead, add our onions and our peppers to this. Okay, make sure that they're evenly in the pan so they all get an even coat and they cook evenly. Not one piece isn't getting burned while the other is cooking too much, while the other is undercooked. So I'm going to go ahead and put our black-eyed peas into the strainer. So we're going to strain the juice, the liquid that's in here, as well as the liquid that is, we're going to drain this. And we are going to actually rinse this out with water, because you can see that this actually comes in its own liquid. And what they do is they salt and season it on their own to make sure that it's tasty if you're eating it out of the can. However, if you're adding it into a recipe which already includes salt, you don't want to add that extra seasonings in. So I'm going to come back to our pan real quick, give these a nice little stir, make sure they're cooking evenly. Keep these going. Okay, while those are cooking, I'm going to make sure to try to get all the water out of this recipe. Give it a good little shake. If you lose a few beans into the sink, it's okay. Okay, if you get a little bit of the water into the recipe, don't be alarmed. It's not going to break or make your recipe. Okay, so I think the majority of the water is out. You don't see any dripping. So I'm going to give this one more mix. Okay, and then add in our black-eyed peas. So you can see how large of a portion this black-eyed pea, these 2 cans of black-eyed peas are. You can genuinely feed a family with this. So give this a nice little mix. Okay. Once you see that everything's incorporated, we're going to add in our tomato paste. Your tomato paste you can find in by the canned tomatoes. So it can be whole tomatoes, chopped up tomatoes, tomato puree. That's usually where you'll find this. I don't see too many people using tomato paste in the recipe. So we're going to use about 3 tablespoons. You can eyeball it if you want a little bit more, feel free. We're going to do about 3 tablespoons. Honestly, we use the tomato paste more for texture than for taste, so it creates almost a thick, soft paste-like texture with our beans, and it's fantastic once it's incorporated. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a mix. I'm going to have to mash the tomato paste chunks and just mix it into all the beans. Once it's heated up, it's going to be a little bit easier to deal with. As right now you can see that it's clumping up, but once we add that lemon, and once it's all heated up, it'll be much easier to deal with. Okay, I think that was a little bit under 3 tablespoons, so I'm going to go ahead and add a tad bit more. So I'm going to mix this in, incorporate it all evenly, and then I'm going to tone the heat down a little bit to about medium to medium high. So a little bit less than it is right now. So as you can see, it's really chunky right now, but that's okay. Don't be alarmed. It will give you the texture you're looking for at the end, and it'll all even out. Okay. Spread that out. I'm going to go ahead, lower the heat just a tad bit. Okay, now we're going to add in our lemons. So we have 1½ lemons. I'm going to go ahead and cut this other lemon. Usually about half a lemon gives you about an ounce of lemon juice in case you're not working with real lemons and you want to use juice instead. I'm going to go ahead and put my hand underneath the lemon just to catch all the seeds. Make sure those don't get into our recipe. You can see I've caught the majority of the seeds in my hand, so just be sure to do that. If you forget, it's not a big deal, but somebody will find it in their dish. Okay, toss that one aside. And like I said, if you are dealing with lemon juice instead of whole lemons, it's about an ounce. So this will probably take about 3 ounces or 3/4 of a cup. Got one more lemon. This lemon's really going to help for the tomato paste. It's going to cut through the tomato paste a little bit, and it's going to help make it a lot thinner than it is right now. Because like I said, right now it looks pretty chunky, but we're going to make it look pretty thin. So you can see the lemon is coming to a boil in there. So now we're going to mix these all together. I'm going to turn it down a little bit lower again. Like, if you ever, if you taste it at the end, and if you feel it's got a little too much, you need more lemon or you need more tomato paste, feel free to add it in. You can adjust this recipe as appropriate. So the only things that will change the nutritional breakdown of this recipe that will make a major change is the black-eyed peas. Honestly, that's going to be the biggest changes. So a little bit of extra lemon or a little bit of extra pepper, it's not going to kill you. All right. So the next thing we're going to add, we got that to a medium. So the next thing we're going to add is the spices. So we're going to use about a teaspoon of salt. Okay. I'm going to mix that right in over the top. Okay. We're going to do 1/4 of a teaspoon of chili powder. If you don't have chili, I'm sure you can substitute it with paprika. So 1/4 of a teaspoon chili powder. Okay. We're going to use 1/4 of a teaspoon ginger powder. Ginger powder is fantastic. It's really got a fresh fragrance, and it's got an unbelievable taste. You can usually find this right next to the garlic powder. So let's go ahead and incorporate that. It's a little tough guy to get out. Alright, being a little difficult. Bear with me, guys. Okay, there we go. And the last thing we want to add in is our black pepper, and you want to use about 1/4 of a teaspoon of that. If you like it a little bit spicier, feel free to add a tad bit more. Okay, so now that all the spices are in here, we're going to incorporate everything evenly. This is a fantastic recipe to try out, especially if you're not a bean lover. This might be the recipe that converts you to liking beans. This recipe is delicious. It's low in calories, it's practically fat-free, it's high in fiber and high in protein, so you can serve it as a main dish or as a side. It really works well. Okay, so as you can see, the tomato paste and lemon have almost created a thin layer of almost a thick paste like sauce over this beans. So it's not a runny sauce or anything, but it's almost a paste. So when you do go to pick up your beans, it's like a chunky texture. That's exactly what you're looking for. So you can turn this up to a high now if you do want your food a little bit hotter, and this is ready to go. So like I said, if you want to check out the nutritional information of this recipe, if you want the nutritional background, feel free to visit my website, QnootSharafi.com. I have plenty of other healthy recipes on there as well. If you wish to feature a healthy and delicious recipe of yours in my newsletters, in my videos, or on my website, feel free to contact me personally. Try this recipe out. It's fantastic. Thank you for watching.